Hello, and welcome to 10 Lessons Learned, where we talk to leaders and luminaries from all over the world to dispense wisdom for career, business, and life in order to make the world wiser lesson by lesson. My name is Diana White, and I'm your host for this episode. Our guest today is Rachna Nath. Rachna Nath is a time-recognized innovative teacher and is also an internationally recognized innovator, entrepreneur, and NASA Solar System ambassador, as well as a National Geographic educator. She is the co-author of the SDG4 corporate handbook set forward by the United Nations. She has master's degrees in entomology, which is insect science, and developmental genetics. Some of her award achievements include Governor's Celebration of Innovation Award, Teacher of the Year, Global Innovation Award from Turnitin, honorable mention for the Presidential Innovation Award for Environment Educators in the United States. Rachna continues to help her students start companies based on their scientific research and has numerous mentions, accolades, and recognition within the STEM community. Welcome, Rachna.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much for inviting me to 10 Lessons Learned, and I'm really, really grateful to be here today.
Oh, I am grateful to have you. And I just, wish our viewers and listeners, if I had listed all of her accolades, viewers and listeners, we would be here for 2 hours. So you'll see her full bio in the comment section so that you can check that out. Rachna, I've got a question for you before we get to your lessons.
Sure.
What would you tell your 30-year-old self?
I would tell myself that to be a little bit more open-minded and be more accepting of others' mistakes, because I realized that everybody is the way they are because they have their own backgrounds and their own baggage. So instead of judging people for who they are, just look deeper into what they are doing and why they are doing it, so that you appreciate life and yourself a lot better than anybody else.
Mm.
And that's what I was not when I look back, I felt that I used to judge people a lot. And then I realized, no, that's not the right approach. So yes, I would say that go back and become non-judgmental, because you don't know what background, where they're coming from. So
I agreed. We are off to a great start. I love that one. So your first lesson, believe that destiny will lead you to where your impact is most needed. Tell me how you came to know that to be true.
So life has its own ups and downs, but for me, it was extremely difficult when in 2016, I came to know that I could not finish a PhD degree that I wanted to finish after 13 years of my first master's. I was extremely displeased at the fact that I was starting to join as a high school teacher, which I never wanted to be. And I realized after being literally thrown into this spot that, okay, and I have to find myself to do something because I was a failure to not be able to finish my PhD. 5-6 months into the program, or even teaching ninth graders honors bio, I get an email in my spam mailbox, and it was from Lemelson, MIT. And it was for a $10,000 grant opportunity for my high school students' projects. That was an innovative idea, and that innovative idea had to solve a real world problem. So I started that, and 6 years after, I realized that that is what I am meant to do. That is what my passion is, and I did not realize that I could achieve that by being a high school teacher. My idea was to be more, okay, I need to get a PhD, I need to be a medical doctor to have impact, but never thought that destiny would push me in a direction where my impact would be maximum. And I'm so grateful that I did not finish my PhD. And now I'm working with these high school students, connecting them with careers and opportunities that they have never thought they would be able to ever achieve. So that's why I say that it's destiny has a way to push you where your impact is going to be the maximum.
Now that leads us right into a segue for your second lesson, which is empowering students with curiosity is empowering the future. That's a pretty powerful statement. So tell me about that, Rachna.
I'm going to start by giving you some examples. right? So some of my high school students have done TED Talks. Some of my high school students have won at international science projects and fairs. We have around 6 provisional patents and 2 patent pendings as of now. My students have companies of their own that they are, and these are not nonprofits, these are actual LLCs that they have established. And all of that comes from a place where they need to know what they are doing. And when you develop that curiosity in the students to make them understand what they truly want to do, other than just academics and getting a good grade and getting into a good school, they do so much better. And that's how I feel that I understand if they get into something that they truly want to do in the future, they they bloom like a flower. So that's why I think that with that aspect, they have to have that curiosity. And we as instructors, educators, mentors have to show them that where their curiosity is, because most of the students, they don't have any idea what they're doing other than taking classes, doing homework and going and getting an earning good grade. But that's why I say that it's if we give them that curiosity and we understand and we make them understand what they're trying to do, they are our future and they will do wonderful things. So that's why I say empowering the future, because that's what we need to start doing other than what we usually do on a regular basis. Like, let's go to school, let's do homework, let's do some volunteering. No, we need to make them understand what they truly want to do and not what we want them to do. Yeah.
I know some of your students, and I got to tell you, I don't know how you feel now, but I am so glad that you didn't go the doctor route because you are touching a lot of lives. So I'm uh, anyway. Lesson number 3.
Thank you. Yeah.
Be your own advocate, value yourself, and pamper yourself. Talk to me about that one.
Okay, I mean, there are lots of things to talk about that, but I'm going to give you a really short example. Coming from India, we have grown in a culture where we are taught not to be disrespectful to elders. And we oftentimes confuse between what is disrespectful and what is standing up for yourself. And this happened again with the instructor, with the professor, where I was actually doing my PhD at ASU. And I remember in a meeting with my PI and one of my other professors who was also in my committee, uh, I had already bought in 2 publications and a whole lot of collaborations with other universities. So this professor tells the other professor that, oh, Rachna doesn't deserve this. I think she has not done this to deserve another first authorship in the paper. And I sit there, and I'm trying to say something, but then I realized, oh, these are elders, these are my professors. I shouldn't say something to them. I kept quiet. And there's one thing that haunts me till date as to why didn't I stand up for myself? Because that is not true. And I realized after a few months that he's leaving ASU and he's going to a different country. So potentially he was trying to see if some of the students would get out of his lab so that he would have minimal things to do when he moves over. And he doesn't have to carry the burden of, having students with him or whatever. So I need to make sure that my students understand that if you do not advocate for yourself, nobody else will. That's a very strong statement for students to understand, because most of these people are people pleasers. They look at pleasing others more than thinking about themselves. And now I'm trying to tell everybody that if you do not advocate for yourself, no one else will. If you don't value yourself, no one else will. And if you don't pamper yourself, no one else will. So you have to take good care of yourself and grow so that people will see and appreciate you for who you are and not who you want them to see as who they are.
So now what do you consider pampering? I'm curious. What is your outlet? What is your pampering?
My pampering for myself is sleeping. I am actually a huge power napper. So even though I work 36 hours in a day, my power naps help me immensely. I can take a quick 10 minutes power nap and I'll be up and ready for whatever comes to me next. So uh, for me, it's that. For somebody, it might be just talking nicely to somebody else, and being there for people. And it's different for different people. For some, it might be just let's go and get some ice cream from Cold Stone and like spend $10, $30, $30 at one time. And it doesn't matter. Pampering is different for different people. And again, they have to identify what makes them happy so that they'll value their own life. Otherwise, it's a lost cause, and I have learned that through a lot of experiences. And like I said, everybody has their ups and downs. But one of the things I truly like to talk to my students about is that these are life lessons that I have developed after 40 something years. And I don't want you guys to suffer through the same thing, but learn and understand that there is always you who to take care of yourself.
And that is why we do this show, everybody. Learning those lessons. We make the mistakes so you don't have to. I don't know if that's a slogan or not, but I love it. I love it. Now let's go to lesson number 4. Never confuse standing up for yourself with being disrespectful. And this, I think, goes back to that other lesson with the professors, but talk to me about that.
No, and again, that was just one of the examples. I can give you another example where, you know, um, I was in a job where I was being assessed, and it was COVID, and I was told that I was not doing a great job, and I said, and that was something that was a real implementation of a new idea, and I tried to mention this to my manager, saying that this is COVID. I'm trying to do the best I can, but I did not.
Mm.
Right? I did not, again, I did not stand up for myself. I did not explain the situations where, it has to have, you have to communicate. That's the basic line. You cannot just, anything cannot be a one-sided conversation. You have to make the other people understand what your lens is. When we talk about lenses, we have to understand each other through each other's lenses. I might be biased in a lot of things, but when I see things from your eyes, Diana, I understand where you are coming from, where somebody else is coming from, or just to talk about, why do why do kids behave the way they do? It's because they're not seeing others through their lenses,
Right.
or others' lenses. So, like I said, you can never be wrong for standing up for yourself, because that is not what disrespectful is. I'm not asking you to fight with people or you talk back to your elders in a way that's disrespectful with a bad tone. But when you stick to what is true, that is not being disrespectful. That's standing up for yourself.
Yeah, it's one of a similar lesson that I had to teach myself growing up in management is that you shouldn't mistake my confidence for arrogance.
Correct.
And I often have to, even now, years later, I have to constantly remind myself when I feel that the person that I'm talking to or the group that I'm talking to is looking at me in a certain way. I have to say silently to myself, you're confident. However, they interpret that is their interpretation. You have to stay confident. And I love what you said in lesson 4 because that's the same kind of analogy.
Absolutely. I get it. And I, as an individual, and I know you have told me this before, when I say that I have a huge, inferiority complex, or, I have a huge imposter syndrome, um, I have realized now that that is because I'm not confident about myself. I'm not aware of what I am doing. And so it's very hard for me to take a compliment because I feel that I am being selfish for whatever reason. Again, it goes back to and ties back to the culture that we come from, right? And we always shun away from praise because if not, then people would think I'm arrogant. So everything is tied. And then I realized, if people are truly seeing something that I'm not seeing, maybe they are right. It's me versus everybody. It comes down to self-confidence, comes down to self-realization. And again, admitting that you are good at something does not make you arrogant. It just makes you realize who you are and the impact that you're having on the community. So you're absolutely right.
I love it. And so this is one of the things that I know about you. You are a very patient person. So when I read lesson number 5, I said, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Lesson number 5, patience is a virtue, but can also become a vice if you practice it too much. So I know you're talking from experience, so share with us.
Right. So, like I said, I mean, patience is something that I have immense of, but I'll give you small examples of patience in my classroom. So I usually end up giving my students very strong directions as to what really pisses me off, what does not piss me off, what makes me laugh, what makes me cry. But then when you have a new batch of students coming in beginning of the year, right? You don't want to be too scary, you don't want to be too lax. So I've learned to give this balance where they understand what's going to trigger Miss Nath, what she really likes and what she doesn't like. Now, there has been many a case where, I teach a course called biotechnology, so biotechnology 1 and biotechnology 2. My biotechnology 1 kids, most of them already had them for my honors bios, and now I'm meeting them for the second time. Okay. Some of these biotechnology 1 kids, now this year, I am getting them for the third time in biotech 2, which is 3 years consecutively in their 4 years. So this one guy, love him to death, absolutely adorable, right? But then when you have a teacher for 3 years and then you are working with the teacher for science projects and you have seen her non-strict side, when you're seeing her as a person that buys you, chips and drinks because you've been working with the teacher for a long time. Sometimes these students have worked with me since till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So I always go back and buy something because either maybe they are hungry, but they've seen that side of me too, right? So when I come back to class, they tend to take a little bit of advantage on you. Like, hey, Mrs. Nat, what's up? I'm like, hey, I'm really good, but remember it's class, right? So, and not everybody has the same kind of relationship with me as they have had because they've had it for my 3 years and they've seen all my different sides. So I had to actually talk to some of these students and said, hey, you know what? I have immense patience. I love you guys. Understand, I'll do anything for you guys. But the moment you cross that line in class with other kids, that's not going to be pretty. Very simple example. Very simple example, right? So, and there has to be respect. So if you, and I'm not even, connecting this to respect, but it's more the comfort zone that they come into where they're like, one of my students went today and like, he was holding my shoulders and like, Miss Nat, I think I'm going to remember you forever. I'm like, oh my God, dear, me too. But the moment you enter my class, you're my student and you're not my friend anymore.
There's no time for friendship in the classroom. But no, I get what you're saying now. Yeah, I get what you're saying. For me, I'm blessed to have a lot of my inner circle be extremely educated. I mean, you've got 2 master's degrees in subject matters that I didn't even know they existed, right? I've got a lot of PhDs around me. I interviewed Dr. Cindy Banton, who you know as well. And when Dr. Banton and I hang out, it is Cindy, we're very comfortable. As soon as someone comes on the scene, if I know them, great. If she knows them, great. If they're a stranger, great. It doesn't matter who they are. It is always Dr. Banton. This is, oh, meet my friend, Dr. Cindy Banton. It's that level of respect because it can be a slippery slope, I think, especially for other people, especially for children, students watching, and they see this one student, hey, he gets to call her, Mrs. N, let's do that too. No, that's not necessarily appropriate. You have not spent the same amount of time, due diligence on these projects. You've not gotten to know each other. That takes time. And so I think in a sense, keeping that level of respect, especially in the classroom, is giving them an inner discipline that they won't understand until much later in life. you know?
And
And
again, you have to model it though. You have to tell them that that's so I have had quite a few instances where I had to pull those kids, which I love to death. Don't get me wrong. I had to pull them and said, hey, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. I love you too. But you're not going to create a situation in my class where others will think that they can get away with anything. And definitely you are not getting away with anything.
there you
So
go.
yeah. So I get it.
Well, let me take a quick ad break, if you don't mind. I'd
Oh,
like to take a short break to thank our affiliate partner, Audible. Audible is an amazing way to consume 10 lessons learned, books, and other podcasts, allowing you to build a library of knowledge all in one place. You can start your 30-day free trial by going to audibletrial.com/10 lessons learned. With Audible, you can find your favorite lesson while at home or on the go. Once again, that's audibletrial.com/10 lessons learned, all lowercase, for a free 30-day trial. The link will also be in the show notes. Let's welcome back Rachna Nath and continue with lesson number 6. Lesson number 6, looking for contentment and making your passion your job is worth more than money. That hit me really, really hard because, growing up, all I heard was get a good job that pays you good money, get a good job that pays you good money. There was never a separation of the two. There's always good money, good money. Talk to me. Tell me how you got to this lesson.
okay. I understand that we need money to survive and, we have to have our basic needs met. But I also feel that along with that, to be happy, to be contented, to be passionate about what you do is also extremely important for your mental peace. For realizing who you are, what is your aim in this world. And it ties down to my point number 1 and number 2, because when I realized what my destiny is or what my goal is in life, what my passion is in life, for me, what drives me is passion, basically. It's not the amount of money I'm making. And I'm happy. I'm extremely grateful. I'm extremely humbled. I'm extremely passionate about what I do because I have learned who I am. And this ties back to so many of the lessons that I have learned in life, not to judge anybody, not to be able to say that I'm tired or, I want to just take a break. That's okay. But it comes down to what makes you happy for who you are. And again, a lot of people are driven by money to a point. I am too. But for me, the most important part is I have to know that I am happy where I am, where I'm working, and that's where I would love to be.
I agree. And I think that I hope that we are not the anomaly, that we were both able to find a way to do what we love and have it actually be lucrative for us. I used to tell my daughter all the time, find a way to do what you love or find something to love about what you have to do,
Right.
one or the other. And I honestly believe that I'm not a big proponent of that. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But it's work. I love what I do, but it's work. Yeah, of course. But I do believe that if you love what you do, I wouldn't necessarily say the money will follow, but you internally find a way to make your wages work for you. You
Sure.
do.
Sure. Yeah.
I've discovered that personally.
No, and I agree. But what truly makes you happy is, and then, like you said, it is still work. Like I said, I work 36 hours a day, if that is something that is truly possible. But with my power naps and with my passion and with the fact that I can actually do what I truly love, it becomes easier. A lot of people ask me, how do you do so many things, Rachna? I said, I don't know. It's just because I'm passionate, I just find time, and my power naps, of course, definitely help. And I also definitely sleep more than 7 hours a day. But it just happens when you truly are invested in what you want to work for.
And I feel like, again, in both of our cases, but really more for you, all of the things that you do, and viewers and listeners, I'm privy to her litany of activities. Mrs. Nath is a busy woman, but they all fall under the same umbrella of STEM science and discovery. And I believe that while it's still work, I find that if it all falls under the same umbrella, it's not like, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's very honorable to have different jobs and different revenue streams from different baskets. But it's not like you're going from teaching science during the day to mopping floors at night to doing hair in the afternoon to working on cars. You're not going from industry to industry to industry. I think that would be unmanageable. But everything you do in your life always ties back to the love of science and learning. And that's one of the things I admire the most about you. You are so steadfast in the way you absorb knowledge. I didn't think that one had the capacity to have that much knowledge in their head.
I don't think I have too much, but I do learn, I do absorb. And my way of learning is just observing people. And I cannot tell you how much I have learned from you, Diana.
No.
I, to be very honest. And I think that is what comes from being respectful and looking at others from different lenses. If I'm here sitting here and judging people like, oh, why are they behaving like this? That doesn't help me in any way. You have to be open, you have to be non-judgmental, and you have to find a way to find your passion. That's what I struggle with most of my students. I actually had a meeting with one of my past students' parents for his brother, who is entering ninth grade now and has no clue what he wants to do. And I said, you have to find it. Just make a list of 5 things that makes you passionate about, and then we'll talk about it on Monday. So that's what it's all. It comes down to curiosity. It comes down to passion for students, and it's very hard for a 15, 16, 17-year-old person to identify what truly motivates them.
It's true. Lesson number 7. Make a list of priorities in your life and allot time for each of them based on your priorities.
Yeah. So it ties down again to me working 36 hours in a day. But I schedule my time in such a way that I know what I'm working for at that moment. I'm going to say something that probably I shouldn't for all the students, but I'm a procrastinator.
No.
I am. And, but see, the thing is, I also tell my students that I can be an extreme procrastinator because I am a very good planner. I don't let it affect me because I plan everything to the utmost detail, which of course you're not going to see it when you come to my classroom with papers everywhere. But in order to be a procrastinator, you have to be a planner too. And that's what I say when I say you have to know your priorities. What is the next most important thing you have to do in order to get things done. I have had very important people in my life tell me, Rachna, you have so many balls in the air, right? How do you do it? And I said, I agree with so many balls in the air, but you also have to admit that I make sure those balls fall in the right exact positions when you're supposed to once that is done.
Well, that is one of the most powerful lessons I've heard since I started the show, because what you hear throughout life is don't procrastinate, don't procrastinate, don't procrastinate. You never hear, hey, if it's in your DNA to procrastinate, how do you work around it so that you still deliver?
Right.
What do you promise to yourself that you're going to do so that you still deliver, knowing that you have the tendency to do this? And I don't think a lot of people really talk about it. They talk about it as a fix. We need to fix that procrastination,
Right.
not find tools so that, we know it's part of our nature. How do we find tools around it? That was enlightening. I think I'm going to write a whole book on that.
Make me a co-author. I can help you
No, because
with that.
I actually do the same thing, Rachna. I procrastinate as well, and it's you're absolutely right. I've become subconsciously so good at planning that I can do something at the 11th hour, and it still turns out okay. Everybody's okay. I personally don't like those feelings of anxiety that I get when I know that I'm coming up to the deadline. I haven't mastered still staying calm in the eye of the storm, but I'd like to get there.
I, can I give you an example of my extreme procrastination?
Please do.
So I actually have a really good news to share. I'll tell you in a second. So I got one of my friends texted me saying that, hey, Rachna, you do apply for a Fulbright scholarship. Look at this opportunity. And it requires you to go to India for 4 weeks in the middle of Thanksgiving. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I mean, I'm going to miss so much of school and all of that, right? So on the day of the due date, like 5 hours to the deadline, I'm like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I apply? Should I not? I'm like, why not? Let's apply, right? So I wrote out a whole bunch of because it was an essay required. And I was able to finish that essay and submit everything 4 minutes before the deadline, Diana, because I had plans. I had already written so many grants. I had already written so many other essays. So all I had to do was make it stick and relevant to that particular idea. And I got in. So,
What?
yes, I am leaving for India on the 28th of October for 4 weeks, traveling to 4 rural villages and learning about their sustainable ways of living, coming back to US, helping in writing curriculum that will be distributed in K-12 schools for learning environmental impacts.
Congratulations. And listeners and viewers, this is, we talked about this quite briefly towards the beginning of the episode where Rachna mentioned, I don't often like to talk about myself and my achievements. I feel like it's bragging. And so, listeners and viewers, I'm going to give you a little inside story here. When Rachna and I hang out and we meet new people, I am usually the one telling everybody all of her accomplishments because she'll just say, I'm a science teacher. And I'll go, yeah, hold on a second. Let me take a deep breath so I can give you the rest of this information. And now I will have to add Fulbright scholar to
Oh.
that. Oh my goodness. Congratulations. That's amazing. That's an amazing accomplishment. And I mean, you just keep getting the recognition that you deserve for all of the things that you do for these kids and to propel science into the forefront for males and females, for boys and girls. It is so important these days. We talk about STEM and STEAM all the time and how there are some critics that say we're losing the battle of education to the criteria of test scores, national test scores, right? And I hope that is not the case. But I can tell you from what I see of what you teach your kids, that is not the case in your classroom.
No, no. And it actually ties down immediately to, my ninth lesson because it just, and I'm not going to go ahead of you, but I truly agree with what you said. It is something that we all have to value.
Very true. But it is still a segue into lesson number 8, which is if you believe in something, make it happen. So you sat there and you said, 5 hours before the deadline, I don't know if I believe in this. And all of a sudden you said, wait, should I believe in this? And then you write it and then it happens. So literally, if you believe in something, make it happen.
And I was extremely surprised to get the phone call the very next day. And that's when I elaborated on what I love to do. And to hear the program director was going, oh, we can do this. We can do this. I'm like, no. Let's just stick to one thing right now. Let's finish this and then we can talk about something else. But it does give me immense pleasure to, just the fact that I have come to a point where I'm not beating myself up for people liking me. So I'm not feeling arrogant. I feel blessed that I have people like you around me and just humbled that, I have been able to create an impact where the students see beyond what they can do coming out of high school.
And they see you still furthering your education in a way by taking on these other responsibilities and going to other countries, which I don't think going to India is going to be such a hardship. I think there'll be time for fun as well as learning. I think this is amazing and tremendous. Number 9, don't be scared of negativity or failure in life. Make it a learning moment. And this is the lesson that you wanted to refer to. So let's talk about that.
So I told you about the levels and MIT grant that my students started off 2018. 2019, we were so damn sure that we would get the $10,000 grant from MIT. It was for a prototype to detect heat stress in students, which I think you're very aware of the project, right? Because my students presented to you. And
Yes.
also, we had presented to the Chamber of Commerce in Chandler. We had everything down. And then we applied in September, and mid October, I remember getting an email probably around 2 o'clock. And this was my 6th period. And they tell us that we didn't get in the first final 15 projects that would get the $10,000 grant. I can't tell you how devastated I was. So, because I had made these kids work so hard for 5, 6 months to get the application going. So I go up to my principal's office and I said, Rob, can I please come in and sit down and I will talk to you? So I said, I don't know how to tell the kids, but we didn't get the grant. And I was absolutely wailing. And not because the students, not because I was sad, but I was more worried about what the kids would feel and how down they would be when they realized they worked so hard and didn't get the grant. So that was absolutely rock bottom for them, and they had failed miserable when we talk about so much work and still not getting the results that they were expecting. But then what happened was after a couple, because of the project that they were doing, they did get a lot of media attention. So I come back from fall break, which is end of October, and I got a message from the Arizona Department of Health Services asking me to call them back because they apparently saw this on the news and they wanted to talk to me. So I talked and they invited me and my students to one of the conferences that they had. And we go there in November and we found out that there was a grant opportunity, that they had gotten a huge federal grant and they would like to work on certain projects that are related to heat stress and heat stroke. And we were there, right? So the lady who was the manager encouraged us to write a grant. And instead of a $10,000 grant, we ended up with a $50,000 grant for the same project, the same idea. So you have to, and going back to that, you have to face failure to understand what true success is, and the taste of success. And where you were previously, when you failed, you don't have to be stuck there. There is always room for improvement. Make your failures your stepping stones for success and continue to try the direction that you really want to get in. So I think that is one of the biggest lessons that my students have learned from all these grant writings, because even though they don't get one grant and they fail in acquiring the grant, it doesn't stop them. They keep on going. They'll believe in their innovative idea. They'll establish companies. They'll write for other grants. And till now, I'm extremely proud to tell you that these kids have acquired over $150,000 grants. And these are all 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders.
So this project that originally was, you were vying for $10,000 from MIT. MIT turned you down, but at the end of the day, it's over $100,000 worth of grants for this life-saving project.
Correct.
I would definitely say that is a very powerful learning moment for your students, to show them that if one door is closed, it just means that there are other doors open.
Absolutely. And again, they have to keep on thriving. And it ties back to my other lessons, right? you have to believe in yourself. You have to give yourself a chance to fail and believe in yourself and continue with that because no one else will stand up for you. For me, I'm here for my students, but I don't think that without me, these kids would have learned that lesson and they would have given up on the truth. So coming back to mentors in your life, right? You are one of my biggest mentors.
You're one of my biggest mentors.
No, and it goes both ways. Like, see, I mean, mutual respect, mutual, accomplishments, mutual understanding that we learn from each other. And that is what we have to be open about. Because I have two masters or whatever, that doesn't make me the master of everything. There is always so many different ways to continue learning and continue growing in that field. Just because I have $100,000 job doesn't mean that I have achieved everything in the world, right? It is a moment that truly makes you who you are when you understand what you're passionate about, continue to do what you have to do to make an
Wow.
impact.
I love it. And now let's segue into number 10, because this is a perfect segue. Keep growing in your field and never be afraid of change, but embrace it.
Yeah. I mean, there are many moments in my life where I continue to feel like, should I continue teaching? Is this what my ultimate goal is? I'm not making a lot of money out of it, for sure. But I realize that I have continued to grow because of what I believe in. I have not confined myself to academics alone because I tell all my students a few things. When the students come in for the very first time to meet the teacher, it's a reality check for the parents as well. I tell them, you know what? If you're coming to this school, you have to understand that most of these students have a 3.0 GPA and above. Everybody is volunteering. Everybody is playing a sport, doing something extracurricular, or they're president of a club. So what makes your kid stand out? What makes your kid different? And that is something that you have to figure out how to grow. So like I said before, my students have done exceptional things which are outside of these 4 or 5 things that high school students usually end up doing. I am not saying, and I'm not undermining any of those things. I'm not undermining them at all. But you have to be a person who has to stand out from the crowd to be able to achieve what you truly want to do and achieve it. If you're not putting yourself in that position and you don't know how to, you need to ask for help. You need to understand what your curiosity is. You need to understand what triggers your curiosity and do something that's truly relevant and not just stick to what everybody else does. And that's one of the things that I push I have 2 kids. My son's 14, my daughter's 16. And that's what I said, like, what truly motivates you? Let's do that. Let's not do the same thing that everybody else does. Let's stand out in the crowd. And I have learned that. My son plays an instrument that has 100 strings. And I did not put him in a piano because not that piano is not something that will bring his mind, but I wanted him to do something different so that he can stand out in the crowd. I might be wrong. I don't know.
Rachna, I already know what your kids have accomplished. You were not wrong.
And I know that he may have done exceptionally in piano too, but strategically, I plan a way the kids that they're not going to have a lot of struggle achieving what they really want to achieve. And I think that's where the mentorship comes in, Diana, a little bit, and understanding what's out there. So all of these students that we see who are our futures need these kind of mentors who will direct them to a path of least resistance, where they will flourish on their own. So the students that I'm extremely proud of, all of my students, they have been working on various projects. I cannot even start talking about some of the projects. It's just incredible. but they have found their passion and that drives it. And I think that is what you have to see, that, you have to change your mindset. You have to understand that these kids nowadays are not the kids that we were when we were growing up. And we have to embrace them. We have to give them the reading space. We have to give them the creative space that they need to grow and develop.
Well, I love that. Okay, so Rachna, got one of the biggest brains I know.
Oh,
You have your life has had this amazing trajectory, and you've got a legacy that you'll be leaving, not just with your own two biological kids, but I feel like thousands of kids across the globe, really. So you've learned a thing or two in your life, but what have you had to unlearn?
that's a very important question, Diana. I mean, one of the things that I really had to unlearn was judging others.
Mm.
I mean, when I was growing up, it was so easy for me to say, oh, what are they doing? I mean, and the attitude, it was my attitude. It was nobody else. It was just me. So I had to unlearn that people are in a certain way because of their culture, because of their upbringing. And unless we understand where they are coming from and why they are behaving the way they are, I don't think we will understand a person genuinely. And for you to have a good relationship with your students, with your kids, you need to understand that. I mean, my son always keeps on complaining that you don't like me. You are doing this. You don't love me, mom. Like, well, maybe you'll realize a little bit later as to why I'm telling you, why I'm telling you. And that was, but again, I do take a moment and step back and listen and talk and sit down and understand where they are coming from. So yeah, one of the biggest examples of my son yesterday, he was complaining about the B that he got, and I was really hard on him. Like, why did you get a B in this? And then he said, you always point out my B's, but you never point out my A's. And I'm like, oh my God, that's true. So I had to unlearn the fact that you always need to criticize your kids, but then with him, I know what triggers him. It's appreciation more and love more. So, it's just, you keep on changing. I had to unlearn so many things, truly, so many things that it has made me a completely different person right now. I'm a lot more patient than when I was what I was. I am a lot more observant. I'm a lot less argumentative. But all of these are life lessons. And I think age and time is a perfect medicine for all of this. All the hurts and the blemishes and the, bad negative feelings that you have. I think with self-realization, understanding who you are, what triggers you, what makes you tick, all this comes in and just blends into one, and that brings you peace.
Amazing.
I don't know if I made sense at all.
You make so much sense. You really do. And I want to thank you for being on the show today, Rachna. I truly enjoyed this. Tell us, what are you up to? Where can we find you? Well, we know you're going to be in India. We know that. But if people want to know more about what you're doing and your initiatives and how to help kids and maybe be a part of the STEM movement, how can we find you?
Well, I mean, I'm not a huge social media person, but of course you can find me on LinkedIn. And I also have my own personal website. It's rachnanath.com. It's my full name.com. And anytime you want to reach me just send me a quick ding on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty sure I'll get back to you. I mean, there are other things I don't know that's as relevant as just my LinkedIn profile or my website. So you can reach me into my website too. So I think that's the two most best ways to connect with me.
Love it. Thank you for being our guest today. You've been listening to 10 Lessons Learned. This episode is produced by Robert Hossery, supported as always by the Professional Development Forum. Please tell us what you think of today's lessons. You can email us at podcast@10lessonslearned.com. That's podcast at 10, the number 10, lessonslearned.com. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of the only podcast that makes the world wiser, lesson by lesson. Thank you to my guests. Thank you, everybody. Be safe.